Revenge feels like justice. Hatred feels like power. But there's an invisible line. Once you cross it, you lose control. And before you even realize it, you're no longer the same person. Have you ever felt an uncontrollable urge to strike back, to prove a point, to give someone a taste of their own medicine? But what if I told you that in the process, the real enemy wasn't the one who hurt you, but what grew inside you because of it? Nietzsche warned, "Whoever fights monsters should see to it that he does not become a monster in the process." But do you truly understand what that means? The worst defeat isn't losing to someone else. It's becoming exactly what you once swore to destroy. Nietzsche gave a warning that few truly understand. Whoever fights monsters should see to it that he does not become a monster in the process. Revenge may feel like a natural response to injustice, but it hides a subtle and dangerous trap. The desire for payback doesn't just destroy the enemy, it also consumes the one who carries it. Every act of retaliation shapes the identity of the person delivering it. Anger, when held onto for too long, doesn't just remain an emotion. It becomes a way of thinking, a pattern, a lens that distorts reality. The moment you decide to destroy someone, you might not realize it, but you could be destroying yourself too. The problem isn't just in striking back, but in the internal transformation that happens along the way. Have you ever noticed how some people, in their fight against what they despise, end up behaving exactly like it? The rebellion against an oppressor can turn someone into another oppressor. The urge to punish a betrayal can turn someone into a traitor. Hatred is a mirror. Everything you throw at it comes back to you, distorted. In practice, those who seek revenge often find themselves trapped in their own past. Every memory of pain fuels the need for retaliation. The mind gets stuck in a loop, unable to move forward. What should have been an act of liberation turns into a prison. Marcus Aurelius couldn't have put it more clearly. The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy. But why is that so difficult? Because anger is addictive. Neuroscience explains that intense emotions like hatred and the desire for revenge activate the brain's reward system. Each thought of retaliation releases dopamine, reinforcing a destructive cycle that becomes harder and harder to break. You think you're in control, but in reality, you're being controlled by the very thing you despise the most. The real enemy is not out there. It's growing inside you. The Stoics taught a powerful truth. When you react, you are under someone else's control. Responding to an insult with another insult, repaying betrayal with more betrayal, seeking revenge at any cost. These are all indirect admissions that your enemy has power over you. If they dictate your actions, then in the end, they've already won. Seneca warned that anger is nothing more than a moment of temporary madness, but revenge turns it into something even worse, a habit, a never-ending cycle that chains a person to their past. The desire for payback keeps your enemy alive in your mind. Every act of retaliation is like adding fuel to a fire that was supposed to burn out. Epictetus, a former slave who became one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, proved that freedom isn't external, it's internal. It's not about having power over others, but about never letting anyone have power over you. He was beaten by his master, humiliated and underestimated, but he never let hatred take over his mind. And this is where the real secret lies. Strategic indifference. A truly elevated person doesn't retaliate. He doesn't stoop to his enemy's level, not because he is weak, but because he refuses to play the same game. The best way to destroy an adversary is to make them irrelevant. Indifference takes away the one thing they crave the most: your energy, your attention, your rage. The real problem with revenge is that it keeps you trapped in the very system you wanted to escape from. True freedom comes when you break that cycle, when an insult doesn't affect you, when a betrayal doesn't define your life, when an attack doesn't change who you are. Revenge is emotional. Indifference is strategic. Not reacting isn't weakness, it's intelligence. Those who understand this become untouchable. Not because they don't feel anger, but because they've learned not to feed the very thing trying to destroy them. In the end, Plato wouldn't waste time arguing with a fool. Marcus Aurelius wouldn't lower himself to seek revenge. and a true Stoic would never allow an enemy to control their mind. Few people realize that by feeding intense hatred, they slowly start becoming exactly like what they despise. The phenomenon is simple. When you obsess over an enemy, your mind begins to absorb their patterns of thought and behavior. Freud described this process as projection, where an individual unconsciously transfers their own traits onto someone else. The hunter becomes the hunted. The victim, over time, starts mirroring the aggressor. Those who dedicate their lives to fighting something often end up carrying that very thing within themselves. Even Nietzsche, who warned about this danger, wasn't immune to it. His relentless fight against certain ideas consumed him so deeply that in the end he lost himself in the chaos he was trying to destroy. Neuroscience explains that the brain adapts to what we repeat most often. If you constantly dwell on revenge, imagine retaliating, or relive the pain of the past, your mind builds deeper neural pathways to sustain those emotions. Over time, this stops being a choice. You become what you think about most. The real issue with revenge isn't just in the act itself, but in the fact that to carry it out, you must hold on to the very pain you were meant to let go of. That's why so many people stay trapped in resentment for years, never able to break free. The desire for payback keeps the same wound alive, the one that was supposed to heal. The real tragedy isn't in the injustice suffered. It's in the internal transformation of the person seeking retribution. Hatred is an invisible chain. The more you pull, the tighter it holds you. You might believe you're in control, that you're simply giving them a taste of their own medicine. But in reality, your enemy is still winning because they still control your actions. True freedom isn't about defeating someone else. It's about them no longer having any influence over you. And that leads to the ultimate question: letting go of revenge. Does it make you weak, or does it make you more powerful than ever? Revenge chains you down. Indifference sets you free. What destroys an enemy isn't confrontation, it's irrelevance. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus understood this better than anyone. He was born into slavery, humiliated, mistreated, yet he never allowed his oppressors to control his mind. His secret? He didn't react. Not because he was weak, but because he refused to give anyone power over his emotions. True strength isn't about physical force or defeating others. It's about never being controlled by anything or anyone. Ignoring provocation isn't cowardice, it's strategy. Moving forward without being consumed by hatred isn't passivity, it's intelligence. But how do you break free from this cycle? The first rule is simple. Recognize when an enemy is trying to dictate your actions. Are you truly acting out of your own will, or are you just reacting? Is there a real purpose behind your response, or is it just an emotional impulse? The second rule is even more crucial. Understand that the greatest punishment for someone who wants to bring you down is watching you thrive, without carrying the weight of revenge. The moment you prove that nothing they did had an impact on you, you've already won. A man who moves forward without ever looking back is someone who has conquered without even fighting. And finally, the hardest rule of all, letting go of the need to prove anything to anyone. So many people spend their lives trying to show they're on top, that they've won, that they've gotten even. But ironically, that very desire still keeps their enemy alive in their mind. If you seek approval, you're still trapped by judgment. If you need to prove your power, you're still comparing yourself to others. True freedom only exists when none of that matters anymore, when an attack no longer shakes you, when someone else's opinion doesn't shape your decisions, when you decide that your energy is worth more than any revenge. Now that you understand the danger of revenge, the final question is, what are you going to do with it? Will you stay stuck in the past, reacting to every provocation, letting your enemies dictate your life? Or will you choose true freedom, the kind that doesn't need to prove anything to anyone? Think about all the times you've held on to anger, even for a short while. Was it worth it? Did you actually feel at peace afterward? Or did you realize that deep down, you were still carrying the weight of what you wanted to forget? Maybe this is your chance to break free from that cycle, to understand that the best response isn't always an attack, It's indifference, to become unshakable instead of predictable. Are you ready to take that step? If this video gave you valuable insight, hit the like button. That helps YouTube recognize that this content deserves to reach more people. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next videos. Thank you for being here. I'll see you soon.